Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at how things have been playing out here for Bitcoin since the start of September. We're also going to jump in and have a look at how things are playing out for our trades and on the Ethereum price chart. And then we're going to jump in and have a look at some select coins that we are trading like XRP, Dogecoin, Solana. And then we're going to briefly touch on macro markets, see how things are performing throughout the rest of the stock market, what this means for the crypto market now that we've seen gold break to the upside and set a new all-time high, and what to expect as we have a very volatile week coming up and the FOMC meeting in 9 days. So lots to cover in today's video, guys. Let's jump into it. So firstly, guys, I just want to start with Bitcoin and Ethereum. We'll get this out of the way real quick. There's not a whole lot to say. We are still just chopping around in this range that we've been in since early July. And so far, since these lows have come in, we haven't really seen price change direction or give us any further indication in which direction price is likely to move. Now, just to touch on higher timeframes here, how price could react from what we discussed last week is we could see price shoot down to 106 on some bad news, swing back into the mid-range here and consolidate before breaking upwards, or Bitcoin could react like it did back in 2021 here, where we see a little bit of chop before Bitcoin can break to the upside, which lines up with how the low ended up coming in down here when we did see those three lows, price bounced to the upside, a little bit of consolidation before we then eventually broke out on the back of good news. So as far as things go for Bitcoin, we don't really know how things are going to play out yet. Just sitting on my hands and waiting to see what the market's going to show us. And my thoughts are the same here on Ethereum. Really not seeing any good price action. We have seen these lows hold. And looking back at our trade, we are still just pretty flat here. We haven't really seen ETH bounce. But if we do have a look at the rest of the altcoin market here, we can see that since Sunday, XRP has had a nice bounce off the lows. It's starting to form these accumulation structures down here at around this $2.80 region. And now we're seeing price move to the upside. XRP on a higher time frame, like we touched on last week, we are looking for most likely a pretty choppy September. Price to eventually move higher, but all in all so far, if things were to play out like they did in 2021, could be a pretty stale month for September. And then when we see Bitcoin break out or set the new highs, is most likely when we will see XRP break out and catch up like it did back in 2021 when Bitcoin set its high. Now moving into the altcoin market and having a look at some of our trades that are performing pretty well. We can see our Solana's trade is still up pretty high from our entry here. We're happy with the way this is performing. It keeps gradually grinding to the upside and has been setting a series of higher lows. And as long as this continues, we should see Solana break out from this accumulation range that it's been in since late July, which is why it is one of the more bullish altcoins that we have traded. Speaking of bullish altcoins, in the last 48 hours, we've actually seen Dogecoin get a bounce off these lows here and now break to the upside. Coming out of its accumulation structure that it's been putting in down here at the lows at about 21 cents, we have now seen Doge break to the upside. So as far as how I'm viewing the markets in the week ahead, we do have a lot of news events. Things are going to be pretty volatile, and it wouldn't surprise me if we do see things like Ethereum wick to the downside. I think the main thing to pay attention to is the altcoin market, which is potentially giving us an early indicator that it does want to break out off these lows, as we can see on XRP, as we can see here on Dogecoin, and as we have seen here on Solana. We've also seen Binance Coin break to the upside since Friday, but surprisingly during all of this, the Bitcoin dominance has been holding down here at the same levels that it's been holding since late August, which isn't the most optimistic thing that we want to see. We want to see this dominance break down, and we want to see all of these altcoins run. So as far as I'm trading the market, we're going to jump into that now. And what we can see is that our Ethereum trade is just very flat here. We've seen no price action come out of ETH for the last 3 days, and considering the volatile week that we have coming up, it's most likely we could see ETH wick to the downside. So I actually do want to deleverage myself on the amount of risk I am taking on this trade right now, just because I haven't seen a reaction that I wanted to see from Ethereum off these lows. And if we invert this price chart, it does look quite bearish, and it most likely points to Ethereum grinding out here before then pushing to the upside and potentially rejecting from there. However, that would stop us out of our trade. So I don't want to take any risk on this ETH trade. Considering I'm risking $300 on it here, I am not confident. So we are going to scale out of this trade a lot. And I'm actually going to start by just closing out 0.7 of the trade right now so that we do take our risk down to about $200 here if we were to get stopped out of this trade. Now moving over to the rest of the trades here, you can see that down below, Dogecoin has caught up to Solana here as far as profit goes, and we are pretty happy with the way that's sitting. And I'm most likely going to leave Dogecoin and Solana to be, because if Sol is to experience some volatility here, it's most likely we won't get stopped out and we will move our stop losses to break even. Same with Dogecoin, as we now have seen pretty good pumps on these trades. So as far as our stop losses go, we will be moving them to break even and not risk anything on the Dogecoin and Solana trade. And the other two trades that we are in here, which is the XRP trade, is such a small position that I'm Just happy to move my stop loss above break even here and just let this trade run. If we do have a volatile week and this trade gets stopped out, I'm not too bothered, but pretty happy with how XRP's looking right now. And I will add to this position if we can see some more indication from Bitcoin that it wants to move to the upside here, especially if we can see some strength come out of Ethereum over the course of the next week. And the one other trade that I do have a position in here is HBAR. And right now we are risking about $100 on this trade. So we are going to move our stop loss just above break even here and actually take out half of this position, as I'm not very confident on the way HBAR is performing and has been showing a lot of weakness over the course of the last couple weeks. So we are going to reduce our position by about 12,000 HBAR and take a little bit of profit here. But for the rest of our trades like Solana here, we are just going to let these continue to run. And for the Dogecoin trade here, we are going to let this run, as I am very happy with the way price has been reacting over the last 48 hours. Now zooming out and having a look at macro markets on a higher time frame here, I'm happy with what I'm seeing. I'm happy that in the next 8 days, we do have a 90% probability that the Fed is going to cut rates, even a 10% chance that they're going to do 2 rate cuts at the next meeting. However, even though short term this is bullish for the markets, this will start a 60-day timer for me as far as I'm going to be treating the market. So when we do see this rate cut, which comes in the next 9 days, as historically in the past, it has been quite bearish for the market after the second series of rate cuts. And for those new to the channel here, I just want to show you guys the last time we had a series of cuts on the Dow Jones here, what we can see was the second time that they actually cut rates was right before COVID. The time before that was right before the GFC, which led to a 53% crash. And the time before that was the 2000 tech bubble, which led to about a 37% crash in the Dow. Now, considering how high the Dow Jones is right now, and that Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market does move in unison with the Dow and the Russell 2000, it's most likely that at some point, while they start cutting the rates at the next meeting, that we could see a correction here. And the way I'm looking at it this time is that typically once we see the second series of rates cuts, we have about 60 days before the market does pull some kind of correction, which lines up with our higher time frame analysis here on Bitcoin. As you can see, we are quite a way up, about 2 years into this bull market, and I think we really just are squeezing the last bit of the juice out of this market cycle. However, this is the time where we see the most exciting things happen, like when the Bitcoin dominance breaks down, just like it did back in 2021, where we see the most outperformance for altcoins and the most money actually made in this market. But not to go on too much of a tangent right now, I just want to show that the stock market is healthy. It is sitting above its highs here, and that if the Dow continues, it's most likely Bitcoin's going to follow and the rest of the altcoin market's going to follow. And if we have a look at the Russell, it is very close to actually setting that new all-time high, less than 3% from actually doing so. And that if we can see that, we can most likely see expansion for the altcoin market, which we have seen so far as the Russell has been grinding to the upside since the tariff scare that happened back here in April. And on top of that, we do have the Nasdaq continuing to grind to the upside and the S&P following along, also grinding to the upside. So from a higher time frame, everything looks good here on the stock market. Everything looks good here in macro. We do have gold, which looks like it's coming up to some kind of topping structure here, as we have seen gold go on a very explosive run up to the upside, come in and set that final 5-wave structure at the top of its move. And now it does look like gold is going for somewhat of a short squeeze here, like we did see back on XRP in January of this year, which for those who weren't around, this is XRP's 5-wave move to the upside. Once that high came in, XRP consolidated for a while, and then it went for that one final push to the upside before eventually rejecting and reversing. And structurally, gold does look very similar to this right now. It doesn't mean that it's over for gold. Of course, like we've seen for XRP, it just went into a longer period of consolidation here. However, structurally, the way I am looking at gold right now is the way that XRP did perform back in January of this year. And that if we do see a short squeeze on gold and then gold eventually comes back down to these lows, a market environment like this would be very bullish for crypto, as bearish price action for gold tends to be pretty good for Bitcoin. So as we head into a very volatile week, we'll be looking to see how the crypto market ends up holding up. We have PPI on Wednesday and CPI on Thursday, leading into the FOMC meeting next Wednesday, which should be pretty volatile for markets and hopefully should create some bullish momentum in the short term, or at least give us direction on what the market wants to do moving forward. But all in all, pretty happy with how things are playing out, especially in the altcoin market here, and especially now here for Dogecoin, as we do have 2 altcoins that are potentially giving us early indicators of what is to come for the rest of the market. The only thing that's giving me a bit of uncertainty right now is the absolute static price action we have seen on Ethereum and the stale price action we've also seen on Bitcoin here, which is why I have deleveraged myself in a few of these positions. And until the market tells us what it wants to do next, I'll continue to only have small positions invested and keeping the stop losses very tight. So guys, if you enjoyed this little update, feel free to leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you have any questions about what we discussed today, feel free to drop them down below in the comments section, and I'll see you guys in the next video.